Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mother Knows Death. The past couple of episodes we've covered Domestic Violence Awareness Month with Jim Schmidt talking about his daughter Gabby Petito, who was murdered and was a victim of domestic violence. Yesterday's episode was a crossover episode with Gandhi from Sauce on the Side, and Gandhi is also a part of the Elvis Duran podcast network with us. So today we have a lot of news stories to catch up on. We're going to start off with Kim Kardashian and her brain aneurysm that may have been caused by Kanye West, a woman who set her building on fire because she was trying to kill a cockroach, a grandfather that was boiled alive at a hotel, a man who was dead for days at a retirement home and no one noticed, of course, and let's finish it off with monkeys with herpes. We'll finish the episode with your questions, comments, all that and more on today's episode. Let's get started with the Kim Kardashian story. It's every week with this woman.
Well, their new season's airing right now, so you're definitely going to see a bunch of stuff. So the trailer came out for the Kardashians, and Kim revealed that she got one of those full-body Prenuvo scans. Weren't we just talking to Elvis about this last week? Well, he wanted a surgeon to open him up and fully look inside, not just do a scan.
That was, I don't know if you guys listened to, because we did another episode with Elvis Duran himself, and he was asking me, like, can people just, I didn't even understand what he was saying, but he was just saying, like, can I just get a surgeon to cut me open and look around and tell me if anything's wrong? And I said, no, I don't think anybody's going to do that for you. You could get one of these full body scans that they're always advertising, but you definitely can't get someone to just do an exploratory laparotomy on you just to see if something's wrong when you have absolutely no symptoms. So that was funny.
Is pretty insane to want somebody to
I'm just like, why would I'm like, why would you want that?
So Kim got one of these done, and then they detected she had a, quote, little brain aneurysm. What are your thoughts on this?
I just think this is such bullshit. Like, if you get one of these full body scans on any single person, you're just going to find something a little weird. And the fact that they said she has a little brain aneurysm is just like, it just means that one of her vessels in her brain is bulging a little bit. But she didn't say anything that they were treating it. So it's just like, if they're not going to treat it, it's just not that big of a deal.
Well, she didn't reveal yet because she went on Good Morning America earlier this week and said basically you have to watch the episode to find out what happened, which, of course.
Well, if she did get treatment, then I would say, okay, then that's a little bit more of a significant finding because, like, people live with brain aneurysms all the time, small ones, and it never causes a problem. If it's incidentally identified on a scan such as this, or maybe you're getting a scan for something else, they're going to want to watch it just to make sure that it doesn't get worse because they are at risk of bursting and then you could have real problems and you could die from it. Actually, when we were at the Dark Side, New Jersey, what was that, 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, 2 Saturdays ago.
2 Saturdays ago, which we did do a live episode, and that will get posted as soon as we get the audio from that.
Because that coming, episode, we promise.
Yeah, it's coming, we promise. And it was a good episode, so I want you guys to hear it. But anyway, one of our listeners came up to us at that oddities exhibit at the Dark Side, and she says to me, oh, I'm so glad I was able to get out of the hospital in time to get here. So I don't know, my brain, just because there's a lot of people listening to us that are nurses and doctors and things like that, I was like, oh, where do you work? And she was like, no, I was in the hospital. I had a ruptured aneurysm and a brain bleed. And I was like, holy shit, because she's pretty young. She's probably around my age or maybe even younger. So it really happens. And so in the episode, apparently, Kim Kardashian said that she got this aneurysm because of Kanye West.
Well, that's not true necessarily. The trailer alluded to the fact that it was stress around the time of her divorce. Although a source is now saying, aka their PR person, that she's not blaming it on Kanye because at the time she was getting it done, or at the time the scan happened and they detected the aneurysm, it was in the middle of her divorce. She was going through the bar exam, I believe, for the third time, and she was getting ready to go to Paris for the trial for her robbery. So she had 3 extremely stressful things happening in her life, on top of the stress of being a famous person and just not being able to live like a normal human being.
But in the trailer or the episode, she said specifically that it was because of stress from Kanye West, and then they kind of backtracked it a little bit.
Well,
It
yeah,
seems.
because
That's what it seems.
It
'Cause-
probably plays to her not wanting to talk shit
Well-
about her kid's dad.
No, it plays to the fact that every single person in the world, like myself, is going to be like, that's not what happens. Right. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. So I guess in theory, because if you have chronic high blood pressure, that would increase your risk for an aneurysm. And in theory, you could have high blood pressure if you're under stress a lot. So like that, it's just a stretch. It's not caused by stress, because then people would be dropping like flies. Everybody's got stress in their life. And really, like, she doesn't have money stress, which a lot of people have. So it's just different stress, right? It's not any worse than anybody else's. So I think that's I feel like that's personally why they put out the statement that it wasn't caused by that, because a bunch of people were going to be like, dude, that's not even, you just made that up. That's not even true.
Well, it's interesting, though, that they are backtracking on it, and I don't know what the real reason is behind it, if it's actually people calling her out saying that's bullshit, or she, like, was like, I didn't want to say something like that, and it looks bad, obviously. But they're saying from the trailer, they also picked up that she's blaming her psoriasis flare-ups on the stress of her divorce. And she also discussed having Stockholm Syndrome, which is when you start being loving and having a positive attitude towards your captor or abuser. So, interesting.
Well, getting back to this MRI, like, the way the article's written is she was having a routine MRI. There's no such thing as a routine MRI.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, too.
There's just not. They don't. They're tests that could cost hundreds and thousands of dollars. They're not just doing them on everyone just to see if you have something. So, like, everybody needs to see that this whole entire episode is an ad for this that she's making thousands of dollars off of.
And they already did an ad about it because Chris got it done before, and I remember you and I got a little tiff about it because you were saying it's so unnecessary for people to get done. But I'm like, if you have the money to do it, who cares?
And this is the thing. Like, I would actually love to see the report and see how it all goes down. And listen, like, when next week's episode comes out, we could be having a totally different situation. But like, her doing advertisements for them, the best case scenario is that they do find something that could potentially be deadly, because then every single person's going to watch it and be like, oh my God, Kim Kardashian almost died of a hemorrhagic stroke. We have to get this test done to make sure that doesn't happen to us. So it could have just been like this hair millimeter, like, it's kind of on the edge of abnormal, barely abnormal, but they were like, nope, we're going to use that because that's going to go viral, which is exactly what's happening, right? So, I mean, I could stand corrected if they say next week, like, she had to undergo brain surgery and have this thing repaired and clipped or whatever, or, you know, embolized, whatever they do for it. I just don't foresee that happening. I just think that this, and this has been a complaint with this show since the newer ones come out, that every single episode is just an ad for their brand, and this is just an ad, and nobody is looking at it like that.
Well, you know, a lot of people have been complaining about that. There's this show on Netflix called Nobody Wants Us with Kristen Bell and Adam Brody, and it's this huge show, and the second season just came out last Wednesday. And I like the show. It's, like, cute and fun, but definitely between season 1 last year and this season, I'm like, the product placement is unbelievable. They will literally be holding up a Dunkin' Donuts cup for like 10 minutes. It's outrageous. And they'll be talking so much about a product. It's like they don't even try to hide it in the... You know when you watch Seinfeld and they're like, oh, I'm going to eat an Oreo? You know? Like little things like that. They're just straight up holding products up for such a long time. And that's the complaint, because people are like, we're not stupid. There's a way to, like, have some sort of subliminal messaging where you're mentioning it and it's not so in our face.
Yeah, because I think like if it wasn't an ad, then you would have just said, oh, she had an MRI. Like, why are you saying what brand of MRI she had? Like, it's just like, come on, dude.
I
Like,
know somebody
we're
that
not
got
done.
one of these done.
What, the MRI?
No, the Prenuvo thing.
Yeah, and how?
I mean, they had positive results from it, but I was also like unnecessary, but whatever. I mean, because they're expensive. They're $2,500.
It's very exactly. That's what's very important to say, that it's not a screening test. I mean, you could use it as that if you pay for it, but like the average person isn't getting that done. The way that they say it in the article is like, oh, this person's getting a pap smear or colonoscopy or things that are typically covered by insurance that people are supposed to be getting annually or semi-annually or whenever they're supposed to get these certain tests done. So it's not a routine screening. There's no person in the world that's just like, oh yeah, like it's such a scam, like all of it. So I think that's all that I really wanted to say about that. I mean, the risk factors that go along with aneurysms are, like I said, high blood pressure. Also, obviously, if you drink, do cocaine, smoke, that could increase it. It could just be like a genetic thing. And it also could be a thing when she was developing as a fetus, that there's just like a weakness in the wall there. There's certain conditions and syndromes. You could see it with connective tissue disorders and stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on with her, but if it's minor, it's just like, whatever.
All right, a woman is facing charges after accidentally setting her apartment building on fire, trying to kill a cockroach with a lighter and hairspray, which then led to the death of her neighbor.
I know. It's like, oh, she used a makeshift flamethrower, and I was just like, okay, wait a second. What did she use? Like, what did you think was going to happen? And listen, cockroaches are probably the worst. Like, really, what's worse, a cockroach or a mouse or in your house? I don't even know. I would actually say
a mouse is worse.
See, I think like a cockroach is just so much worse, because I feel like with first, the mice are just bigger, and you can get that under control at some point if you see them. If you have a cat, something like that. Like, the cockroaches are just, they lay these eggs, you can't see them, and it's I don't know. It freaks me out.
Usually if you see one, it means there's like hundreds behind the wall.
Exactly. That's why I just like fortunately I never had to deal with them, but God, at the one hospital I worked at, they were in the morgue, they were coming out of the drain. It was just terrible, and it was like something you could just like never get rid of, And and like, I also have a thing with insects that don't fly. Like if something comes in the room and flies, then you're kind of like, okay, that came from outside or something. You could just justify it. But like big things like that crawling, like, no. So I understand that she wanted to kill it, but like, could have used a shoe. Like,
what is your most skeeved bug?
I would say like a cockroach or like those water bugs.
No, mine is sprickets, because I have them in my basement. I go down there to change wash, and my basement floor is like brown, so they blend into the ground. And then one will jump towards me, and it makes me want to die. I hate it. And I don't even know if I told you this. One got in my hamper the other day. When I dumped it on my bed, one of them jumped out, and I almost passed out. They are so disgusting.
I don't understand them. I feel like I've never seen one outside once. They're like specific basement bugs.
Well, that little shed on the back of my house, there's like a gajillion of them in there.
Really?
And I don't know where they come from. They're so disgusting. And they're not always in my basement, just sometimes.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of scary. I don't know. It's just weird. Like, and it's weird how our mind does that. Like, I feel like most people would say if they saw like a ladybug, they would pick it up and be like, oh, this is cute. And like, or a lightning bug, they would like let it crawl on them and hold it on their hand, and they would think it was cute. And then when you think about like a cockroach, it's just like people want to get a bottle of hairspray and put a lighter towards it and set people's houses on fire and kill people.
They're hard to kill, though. You really can't just crush one with your shoe. And they can live. I think they said they're the only bugs that could survive like a nuclear attack. They can live forever. I think they can live a week without their head. They're very unusual creatures.
So we had, like I said, at one of the hospitals I worked at, we had a serious cockroach problem in the morgue, but we also had it just in the part of the hospital that we were in where the lab was. And you would just be sitting there and look up, and when you have like a fluorescent light drop ceiling situation, you would be able to see them like crawling on that piece of plastic that covers the
Ew.
fluorescent light. Yeah. So one day we were sitting there and one of the secretaries was back there, and one of them like fell out of the ceiling onto her jacket.
Oh my
And
God. I
she
would
was like
drop dead.
she was so emotionally disturbed by it. Like it was, I felt terrible for her. But one day we tried to play a trick on one of the pathologists. So we decided that we were going to take one of these cockroaches that we found, and and it was already dead. So like for all those people that are trying to protect bugs, it was already a dead bug. And we decided we were going to play a trick on one of the pathologists, and we were going to tell them that it came down as a specimen and it was in someone's ear. And we were going to make a frozen section of it. So that's something that we typically do when a person's getting surgery done and they're open on the operating table. We'll look at something under the microscope really fast to see if we could. Usually it's done to guide the surgeon to be like, oh, you could close the person up, or you have to take more tissue or something like that. So we made up this whole story, and we stick the cockroach in this frozen bath of liquid nitrogen to freeze it. And we try to make a frozen section of it, and we can't even cut it onto slides because the exoskeleton is essentially like cartilage or bone. Like you just can't cut it with a blade that's like a razor blade. But we got a couple chunks of like antenna, and we brought the slide to the pathologist, and we were like, this was in someone's ear. What do you think it is? And he looks at it under the microscope and he's like, well, it's some kind of insect. I see bug parts under here. Like, it was so funny, and we were laughing about it, but we just didn't even think that we wouldn't be able to cut the thing because it was so tough, like the outer surface of it.
They really are so big and so gross, and people think that the bigger ones are the issue, but really the small brown ones are the serious problem.
Ew, they're just, ugh.
So this is what happened in this case. So she uses this makeshift flamethrower from the lighter and hairspray at 5:30 in the morning, which sets the apartment on fire. So then her neighbor, who just gave birth 2 months before, her husband, and their 2-month-old baby are in their apartment, and the apartment starts filling up with smokes. They can't get out the front door. So I guess there was another building, or part of this apartment building was only 3 feet away out of their window, about a meter. So they were trying to get into this other apartment across the alleyway. So they hand the baby over to the neighbor in another apartment. The husband ends up getting over, and then the wife's going over, and she fell 5 stories to her death.
Yeah, like this. I mean, this is just like so irresponsible. And that's the scary part when you live in close quarters with people, that you could do, you hear about this in New York all the time with the scooters and the bicycles catching on fire. But by the way, so we went to New York last night to see the screening of the Love and War documentary for Nat Geo Docs, which is going to be out in a week or two, I believe, on Hulu. It was awesome. I highly recommend you guys seeing it. But, we don't, and certainly we go to New York to go to the iHeart Radio, but we don't really go at night usually. Like sometimes we'll go get dinner with our friends or whatever, but we got this really awesome parking spot, but it was next to a bike lane. And we get out of the car, and there's people in this bike lane on those e-scooters and e-bikes. It's scary as hell. Like, I feel like you can get seriously injured, if not killed, if one of those things hit you. It's just a weird thing that I wasn't expecting. I almost feel more comfortable crossing the street with moving cars than those things, because it just was like the weirdest thing ever. That was a side note.
I got clipped by somebody on a regular bike when I was interning in New York, and it was horrible. So I can't imagine getting hit by one of those. They're little vehicles.
It's weird because they've come on the scene fairly quickly, that I don't think there's been a lot of laws implemented with them. It's just weird to watch something that could go that fast be in something that's considered to be a bicycle lane. I also think it's probably dangerous for people that are on a regular bike too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
They can go pretty fast.
it just was like a really weird thing. I was just kind of scared to cross that particular lane. What were we talking about? I don't even understand like the tangents. Oh, like living in close quarters with someone. We've talked about this before that people will put their e-bikes to charge with these fake chargers and these fake batteries, and then it sets the whole apartment building on fire. So even if you're doing the right thing in your particular building, you have to deal with everyone else that lives in your building. Hopefully they're doing the right thing too.
Oh, totally. And this woman's not the only person that, I mean, she died, but there was 8 other people that were injured in the fire. They just got minor injuries though from smoke inhalation, which still sucks. None of them were threatening, but so they want to charge this woman with accidentally starting a fire and causing death by negligence, and I feel like that's reasonable. I mean,
Yeah,
what the fuck
absolutely.
was she thinking?
I don't know. Like why would you? Yeah, like what are you thinking? There's 1,000 things she could have used. I
Yeah,
mean,
it doesn't
and
make any sense.
yeah, and I mean we don't know the full story of it. Like maybe it's a huge problem, and she's called the landlord a lot, and they're not doing anything, and you know what I mean? Like there might be more to the story, but still, it's you just if
Yeah,
you're
but you can't just like go using
yeah
such a flammable thing
yeah if you're
and
just
expect
like if
nothing to
you're just like
happen.
a human living in society, like you should just know that that's a terrible idea. It's scary that you don't know that actually.
Okay, back in May, this grandpa was staying at a hotel because he was going to see his granddaughter graduate from college the next day. And at the hotel, he is taking a shower, but the water was so hot that he was essentially boiled alive and found unconscious a little while later by his grandson.
So was he taking a shower or he was taking a bath?
I think he was taking a shower, but they were saying they found him submerged in water. So was it one of those like the drain wasn't fully emptying, or did he was he in the bath and the shower head was turned on? I'm not really sure.
Well, regardless, I think so. Gandhi actually texted this morning and asked about this, like, how the hell did this happen? And I think obviously the headline's a little sensationalized. I mean, but technically not at the same time because what, I don't know how it works in hotels, but I know in the house, for example, our hot water heater, you could adjust how hot the water is.
Mm-hmm.
And in our house, we keep the water extra hot because number one, I'd like to take really hot baths, but number two, I I find that it's easy to wash dishes if you eat dinner and you just run it under really hot water, like you don't even need to use soap. It just cleans the dish. That's what they do in restaurants and stuff too, I guess. Um so I'm assuming that at hotels as well, there's some kind of a gauge on it because most cities and most states recommend a certain temperature. So, like 120 degrees, for example, that they think that humans could tolerate just to prevent accidental burns like this. So, there's that. This guy is also, he's old, a little bit older.
77.
So he's 77. So when you get older, your skin gets a lot thinner. You lose subcutaneous fat or the fat that's underneath of your skin. That's why with old people, you see that they get these huge bruises on their arm just by like walking by the table and bumping it, just because the skin gets so thin. I don't know if you remember like years ago about this woman that got burned really bad with the hot coffee at McDonald's. It was like this huge lawsuit and
Well, yeah, because even Seinfeld made an episode about it because it was such a big deal.
yeah. And when you look at the details of that case, it was like the woman was a little bit elderly. She had thinner skin and she ended up getting third-degree burns, which should just not happen with coffee unless it's served too hot. And that was the whole lawsuit, was like it was served too hot. And I'll tell you right now, like we get coffee sometimes from a place and it's so hot, like I can't even touch it for an hour at least. It's just so hot, like it actually burns my hands through the insulated cup. I just know that the temperature is not right on it. And that's what's scary, because when they're handing it to you through the drive-through, that just is a potential for it to fall on you and burn you like that, right? So so in this case, if they find this guy dead in the tub, they're obviously going to do an autopsy to try to find out exactly what happened. And when they did the autopsy, they found that they didn't see anything that would have caused his immediate death except the fact that he had these burns on 30% of his body. So, what happens, your skin's an organ, right? A lot of people don't think about your skin being an organ, but it's an organ. So when you get burns on a large portion of your body, there's a lot of different things to consider that could happen. But in the immediate, so in the future, you might think about infections because your skin is the barrier that holds you from the outside world. And when you don't have that, you just have an increased risk of like bacteria and stuff getting through your skin. But that wouldn't happen instantaneously. In the immediate danger of getting burns like this is because your skin is also responsible for regulating your body temperature. And your body temperature is important because your organs have to stay at a certain temperature in order for them to function correctly. So think about when you have a fever, for example, that would be considered hyperthermia because you're hotter than you're supposed to be. And think about like how shitty you feel when you have 100-degree fever, even just a minor fever. You just feel
totally.
You feel like shit, right? So that the skin is helping regulate your body temperature, and when you have that large of a portion of your skin burned, you could get hyperthermia, and that's exactly what, or hypothermia. It fluctuates depending, but you can die from that. It could cause your organs to shut down and die from that. So they determined that was what killed him. And, of course, they're going to go back, and the other factors are going to be that he was older and his skin was thinner, so he was like at more of a risk for burns. And
Well, listen to the details of this. They're saying the water was so dangerously hot that they could not initially lift him from the tub. As they struggled desperately to save him, they were forced to watch in horror as his skin peeled away from his body. And then they said they could not touch him without burning themselves.
yeah, and that wasn't immediately after. Like they didn't hear because you were saying he took a shower, so I'm assuming that they would have, if he was taking a shower, there would have been some kind of a thump.
The lawsuit is saying they believe they found him within minutes, but I don't think
the water
they
was
heard
still
him fall.
Yeah, and think about that. Like when you take a bath, when you're not in a bathtub that has a jet, right? The water's hot and it cools down pretty fast. So if it was that hot, there could have been something broke on whatever regulator controls the temperature of it, or something happened. Maybe they installed a new hot water heater. I know sometimes when you go to Airbnbs and stuff, the hot water heater will be in the closet or something. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen that at a hotel, that an actual person would have access to it to change it like that. Which is, I guess, also a possibility if a person was there and taking showers and didn't think the water was hot enough, someone could have messed with it if they had access to it. I just don't see that because it was a Marriott or something, right?
Yeah, do you think that it's possible he got in the shower when it was a normal temperature and it just got that hot so quickly that it kind of like stunned his body that he couldn't move to turn it off?
It could have just been a lot of different things, because another thing to consider is that they said they found him submerged in water, which to me would mean that it was plugged, because normally the water goes down the drain.
But is it possible he fell and blocked the drain, so
Yeah.
then it started filling up?
Yeah, that's possible. It's also just possible the plug was in and the water was filling up, and then his feet to his, mid-calf was submerged in water that hot, would also increase your body temperature and could make you, pass out. I don't know exactly what happened, but they did say that he had high blood pressure, which was a contributing factor. So that would be not only from like looking at the medications that he's on and a history of high blood pressure perhaps, but also you could see if a person has longstanding high blood pressure, you could see that the pump or the left ventricle of their heart is enlarged because their heart is working harder. And when you work, just like if you work a muscle in your arm, it gets bigger. It's the same exact thing with your heart. So it's working harder and getting bigger. But they didn't think that it was severe enough that it would have caused him to die. And based with those burns, I mean, this is like a huge lawsuit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, totally unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, we have The Gross Room on sale this week. It is almost over, and Speaking of people getting boiled alive, we actually have a case in the gross room from when a person was actually boiled alive. It's a vintage case, and it's really, really, it's so disturbing, but that's why I was saying that the title of the other article was a little sensationalized. But I was making matzo ball soup this weekend, and I was making the broth, and when you do that, you put a whole entire chicken and you cook it over hours for it to really be boiled, right? And when you get to the soup hours later, it's just like the bones are completely separated from the meat. And that's what I think of boiled alive. And in this case, no, it's really disturbing, but that's that's what it is. So in this case in the grocery room, so this was actually a Forensic Friday I wrote about what happens when a person's boiled alive. This person was actually boiled alive and looks more similar to the remains of my soup than just a person that has severe burns on their body. Like and something weird happened with the bone, and it involves a dog, and it's just the story is absolutely crazy, and it's actually probably a murder that was hidden, but that's a side note. So what else did we have going on in the grocery room this week? Oh, we had
Scream.
so we had Scream. We covered Scream. So last year we did these high profile movie dissection where we went through the movie Sleepy Hollow as well as the movie Seven and just said, is this probable or not? Is this, all of the different scenes we kind of go through, put clips of the movie, and it was really fun. So, which if you join the gross room, you'll have access to all that stuff too. But then this year we did Scream, and we did it a little differently because Scream was actually based on a real life serial killer, and it's just cool to see like what parts of the actual story they took and just like what was the inspiration for the movie and compare and contrast the different things. But and then we also compare it to another murder case that's more recent, and one of the most really disturbing serial killers out there that's not talked about that much. So make sure that you check that out too.
Head over to thegrossroom.com now to get 1 year for only $20. Okay. This woman went to visit her 75-year-old uncle at his retirement home, and when she got there, she found him dead in his chair, saying he looked like a skeleton.
This is another like lawsuit worthy. What the hell is going on at this place?
They had mandates to check in on the people living on the residents if they didn't hear from them by a certain point every day, and they did not do that.
Yeah, for what was it, 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, so
it ended up being.
The sheriff said they thought he was sitting there basically for 3 to 4 days. And obviously, like, if he just died of natural causes, like, them checking on him or not wouldn't have made him, would have revived him. But he shouldn't have been sitting there for 3 to 4 days. It's disgraceful.
The whole entire thing is actually interesting because obviously it happened in shocker, Maricopa County. It seems like that's where all the shady business is happening there in Arizona. So in Arizona, it's hot as hell still. So I would assume that buildings like that have air conditioning. So that would definitely slow down decomposition for sure, but it would still be happening. And I would think after 3 to 4 days of a body being out in room temperature like that it would start to smell. And I don't believe that it looked, I definitely think that it could have had some changes that could have made the face appear to be more sunken in, but I don't think that the body looked like a skeleton because it's just, there's not enough time for that to happen.
No, it was probably more just her misspeaking about seeing him alive versus
I'm sure
not.
he looked disturbing as hell. And I guess the thing that's more that's bothersome to me is that no one smelled that. If they're living in rooms within a building like that, I just can't imagine that wasn't addressed. And obviously, that's the scare. It's almost like sticking your kid in a daycare center. Like you trust and you go visit and you think it's okay, but you have these, either babies that can't talk for themselves or adults that can't talk for themselves that are they can possibly be getting mistreated and you wouldn't even know it. And that's why you pay for, I mean, like the guy would have been better off being at his house by himself.
Yeah, but all right, so like yeah, and I think that the niece was really trusting of this facility because their policy was that that all residents were supposed to push a button to signal that they were all right by 10 a.m. every day, and if the staff did not receive that signal from them, they were supposed to reach out. But in his case, he didn't push the button. They said they tried to call him, couldn't get in touch with him, and then nobody ever physically went up to his apartment to check on him, which is completely unacceptable. But his wife just died. He only has lived in this place since January, and seemingly it had seemed like a good place to be until this happened, which is unacceptable.
Like it could just be like a we were talking a couple weeks ago about that nurse that handed, there was the wrong baby handed to the wrong mother.
Yeah.
It's just like it probably has something to do with a change in shifts and people not following some kind of protocol that they should be following. And we were saying with the case with the nurse, there's like multiple checks in place. So if something does fall through the cracks, like the next backup person is supposed to catch it. All of the systems in the hospital are set up like that, and it's probably some kind of failure with that. I would say more than if the place has a pretty good rep, I would say it's probably that more than just like pure negligence.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could even see if there was a shift change on day 1 and they missed it, but 3 to 4 days in a row.
No, yeah, not even day 1. I mean, it's not.
Day
it's
1's
not
unacceptable
acceptable
too, but you could see it, happening a little more in that situation. But clearly, they were not doing their job.
And just like you going and visiting your family member and thinking you're going to see them alive and then seeing them dead would be traumatic in itself. But to see a dead body that's decomposing is just so traumatic and will never get erased out of that woman's mind. That's like a pain and suffering situation. I sure as hell wouldn't want to see my loved one like that. So,
and she shouldn't have
Yeah.
She shouldn't have had to.
Exactly.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, earlier this week, a truck transporting monkeys to a Florida testing lab got in a horrific accident, causing the monkeys to get loose, and apparently the driver incorrectly told police that they were very dangerous and infected with herpes, hepatitis C, and COVID, so people were freaking out, but it was not true that they were infected with anything.
So when I first heard that, like I barely know anything about what gets done in research, but just to me, I just was like, why would they purposely infect monkeys with all of these different viruses? Like I could see 1 and maybe even 2 if you want to see how they act together. It's just a little like, what study are they doing? Oh, we want to see the implications of a monkey that has viral hepatitis that also gets a COVID infection and a herpes infection at the same time. Like, it just seems like a little bit of a stretch to do that, to give these monkeys that. So I was just kind of like, okay, I just don't understand why this guy thought that and why he said it out loud, or did it just get lost in translation?
I'm not sure, but the university they were being transported from was saying they didn't have any infectious diseases at all. So I'm not really sure where that even came from. It seems like it was totally fabricated. But before they knew that, they caught some of the monkeys and euthanized them.
Well, I was thinking that too, just in general. I mean, I mean, what's the difference? Like those monkeys are getting killed. They're being used for scientific research, so they would have gotten killed either way when they were done with them. And it's actually upsetting because there were reports that these monkeys were aggressive, but was that false too? I'm not sure.
Well, they were saying that the monkeys weren't dangerous, but
they weren't dangerous from a transmissible infection standpoint, or
personally, I don't think they were dangerous from what you're saying. But after you watch, documentaries and stuff like Chimp Crazy, monkeys are not necessarily the safest animals to be around humans.
This is the thing though. Chimps are closest to us, that if you were to do studies, it would be the best because they're genetically the closest to us, but they get a little angry. Like
Yeah, like I think of Carla
Charlotte Nash,
Nash.
Charlotte Nash, like, which is another one we wrote about in the gross room, with a disturbing of that. And you said there's like a whole, isn't there like a whole show about that?
Yeah, chimp crazy.
Yeah, so
They follow around this woman, Tanya, that's like absolutely insane, that has this chimp. She like stole one. It was like fugitive. It's insane. But they did have I think the second episode's all about the other incident where that chimp ripped off Carla Nash's face, and it was horrific. I mean, that you were saying you were maybe going to show Lucia because she liked Tiger King, and I was like, I don't know. It was pretty disturbing to watch as an adult. I don't know.
yeah,
She could handle
the
it.
story is disturbing. So it's this monkey's called the rhesus monkey, I think it's called, but I guess they use this particular one because there's a lot of them. They live in all different parts of the world, so they're easy to get, and they obviously they have a more chill disposition than a chimp would have. But the thing is with primates is that they're very intelligent animals, so they know what's going on. This particular species, it which is really crazy that they say this when they're studying them. They said that they have social intelligence. They side with relatives when fights happen. They're very family oriented. They recruit allies when they attack most. And most of their daily lives are spent building political alliances. So to me, if they're able to do all that, then I would think if they see that they're under the control of humans that are doing things on them that hurt them, that they're like kind of aware of what's happening a little bit more than the average rabbit, so to speak. So it is, I mean, obviously, like if they get let loose, they're going to split. And if they were enjoying it, why would they leave? They're not enjoying it, right? They're leaving, and now they're getting, so like their whole life was just for the purpose of using them for that, and then they got destroyed because they were potentially infectious, which you have to do because they can transmit that to a human.
Well, I was going to ask about the transmission to a human, but also, like, I did notice they kept using the terminology, we've destroyed them, which was interesting. But I think they were saying they killed them because of the infectious disease. But then that part turned out not to be true at all. But I get what you're saying in some capacity. Like, I hate when we cover. I'm definitely not a number one animal advocate, right? Like, I'm not really fond of animals that much, but I can definitely say it's not right when, like, a shark bites a human when the shark is just in its home in the ocean and then the shark gets killed.
Yeah.
Or a bear, like things like that really bother me. So I was like, this is so fucked up that they like killed these monkeys after finding them. But I guess, is it better that they got what they say destroyed after they were found now than going to the lab and continuing to get tortured the rest of their lives?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like do it now or do it later kind of thing. It's the whole situation's messed up, and it's actually, we had a story. Well, we said this on our YouTube live in the gross room, that we had a story last week that there was some really bad accident and someone was transporting. I mean, cats. It wasn't for research. It was for adoption. But the same thing happened. The van that the cats were in crashed so bad that they were exposed to the street, and the cages broke and they ran. And then now you have, I think they caught some of them, but like you have cats living in the woods on the side of a highway now that aren't used to, they could possibly be indoor cats and not used to being outside.
So then
yeah.
some outlets were reporting that 3 were still missing, while some outlets were reporting that 1 was still missing. So I mean, that's kind of eerie to just know a monkey is on the loose. And I guess you don't know the full state of the monkey, if it's being tortured in a lab its whole life, if it's going to have normal behavior or not. And even when they do have normal behavior, they can still be aggressive towards humans, probably especially when they feel threatened.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw this story this morning. I just saw that people were at a Spirit Halloween in Texas, and this monkey wearing a diaper was seen swinging from the ceiling, and then the owner had to lure it down with a cookie after the police were called. But I'm like, why is the monkey in the store?
Well, it's probably the owner's monkey, right?
Well, no, I'm talking with the owner of the monkey. I don't think it's the
Oh,
store's
okay.
owner.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
there's definitely like this. There's been a change over the past couple years that there's not this line of like where is it appropriate to bring animals, and obviously like dogs are the most socially acceptable one, so people bring them to restaurants and stuff like that. I don't know if it's necessary that we put them in a stroller and bring them to the mall, but okay, do
why
whatever,
everybody else is
do
doing it.
do whatever you want to do. But whenever these lines are broken, then there's like the habitual line crosser people that, they get exotic animals like weird snakes and alligators and things like that you're not supposed to really even be handling in your house, let alone bringing into public places and stuff like that. So this guy just had a monkey with a diaper on and was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna bring this monkey to the Halloween store and get it a costume. And now you have a monkey hanging from the rafters at Spirit Halloween. Like, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I don't know how the people are responding in the store, but I would certainly not be comfortable if it's just like
I know,
roaming
right?
around. Yeah, I don't know. I think if having pet monkeys, I think it was like real popular in the 80s, right? That you guys used to get like catalogs in the mail where you could like order them. I feel like a friend of mine said like in their house in South Philly
No, I
they got
definitely never
catalogs
got
from
a
them.
catalog to order a monkey.
Well, I know somebody that did in their childhood and they're about your age, so I don't know. Definitely interesting. I don't understand who would want a pet monkey, but if it's for you, just be careful. Don't end up in a
So
situation.
these particular monkeys, there's videos online, and they're actually really insane that they'll be in whatever country that they're in, and they kind of get together and go up to humans and open their purse and like steal their wallet and stuff. They're very intelligent, so you have to think that they're going to be pissed off because they're not being treated well, right? And
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what? It's no quality of life.
no.
Okay, let's move on to questions and your emails. First, how does having an autoimmune disease affect your viability as an organ donor?
I think in general it probably doesn't unless there's certain circumstances. I feel like either if you're a living donor or you're donating organs or you're even doing post-mortem organ donation like skin or cornea, I think that there's really not that many things that they turn down except really like infections, sometimes cancers or things like that, but they could always use something. And I don't I would say, like, let's say for example a person has alcoholic cirrhosis, or if they have hepatitis C and they need a liver transplant. When their liver's that bad that they say you need a liver transplant and you can't live without one, taking a liver from somebody even with rheumatoid arthritis or any kind of autoimmune disease would be better than nothing. Um, the only time I could see that might be a problem is if there's an autoimmune hepatitis, just because there could be damage to the liver. But even so, I'm not really sure what the criteria are, but I really and the same with skin, like you could have some kind of autoimmune skin conditions, so they might not want to donate that. But I don't really think that it's an issue, but I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure.
All right, two. This is from Renee. I love your show. I never miss an episode. I downloaded 12 hours of your older podcast while flying to Europe this summer and can't get enough of you girls and the crazy stories. I really want to know what Nicole has to say about placenta specimens. Does the hospital sell them? Are they really worth what people are saying they are? $50K. Is there a special protocol for disposing of them, or could there be a way for a middleman to step in and bring them to a facility where they can use the stem cells? I work in the operating room as a surgical tech and know there are products we use for hemostasis that involve placenta stem cells. We use them to help promote healing in wounds, mostly in podiatry and trauma wounds. I have asked multiple sales reps to explain where these placenta stem cells come from, and no one can give me an explanation. I'm totally plan on taking mine home from the hospital like Nicole one day.
Yeah, you should. It's a good trinket, and it's your organ and you made it, so you should keep it. Listen, honestly, I kind of have similar questions, and I'm going to say from my perspective of both of the major jobs that I've had working in surgical pathology, and even just I rotated at almost every local hospital around here, or been in surgical pathology at some point, or know people that work there. I think that it happens prior to pathology. I've never seen cases. Like, we don't get all of the placentas that are delivered in pathology. We only get ones that have a problem. Because if we got all of them, it would be a problem for us big time. It's just too many. It would be too much work. So we get them if the mom had an infection, if there was something wrong with the fetus, if it was a multiple birth, if there was the mom was on drugs. Like, there's all this list of reasons that we would get a placenta. But all of the standard normal births, most pathology labs don't see any of them. So I have no idea what happens with those placentas. That would be something you want to, or if one of our listeners listens that works on an OB floor, like, what happens with them. When we get it, we put it in formaldehyde. So that, I believe, would just, like, not the specimen would no longer even be eligible for that, because we're formaldehyde is killing everything in it. So we do it, especially if a person had any kind of infection, like an HIV infection, anything like that. Like, we put it in formaldehyde, or formalin, which is like a watered down formaldehyde, just so it's not infectious for us, because we're cutting it and it's a super bloody specimen. But then you wouldn't take cord blood from that. So I don't know if they take the cords before they send them to us or anything, but once we're done with them, we make microscopic slides with them. The pathologist looks at it. If they're satisfied, we keep it for, like a month, and then we throw it, we incinerate it with the medical waste. So from my perspective, I've never seen that happening. So I really don't know. But I've heard about all of these cord studies and this and that, and I'm just like, well, where are you getting it from? Because it's certainly not coming from the pathology department in most cases.
Interesting. All right, this last one's from Tara. Hi, Nicole and Maria. I listen to you at work, and it's always the highlight of my day. Thank you. That's very
Thanks.
sweet. I wanted to comment on your road cleanup question. My parents live in California, and their neighbor had a psychotic episode and stabbed his mother before walking down the street shooting an assault rifle. He tried to shoot my dad, but fortunately the gun jammed. My parents live on a street that ends on a main boulevard. The man that went up on the boulevard and started shooting at cars. At that time, the police were there and shot him in the middle of the street. His pool of blood was left in the street along with various medical supplies such as gauze and God knows what else. He ended up dying of the gunshot. Nobody ever cleaned his blood up. It slowly faded from the sun and the rain. I guess this doesn't answer your question, but maybe they just leave it. Can you imagine?
No, I can't, actually. That to me doesn't sound typical, but I don't know if you're in a more like suburban area. I just know that, like I said before, my husband's been called to clean blood up, but that's in a city, so it might be. I just think it's a bloodborne pathogen. It just shouldn't be sitting out there for kids to run through by accident with their bike, or and just from a litter perspective alone, like having a pile of gloves and gauze and clean up there is weird that anybody even left that. But it could just be like they called and said, hey, come clean this up, and it fell through the cracks and someone didn't do it, because I would think that is something that should not be there.
Cops can't just have like a little power washer in their car to
That's their job. Like,
I know, but I'm just saying, like, somebody can't come through. Because, like, sometimes I see blood on the street, but mentally I'm just like, it has to be from a deer. I can't accept that it would be anything else. But, there was just that bad accident near us last week, where that person got killed on 38. And
oh yeah,
imagine knowing that a person got killed and then driving by that spot and seeing a giant blood stain every day until it rained and went away.
I feel like it's probably the same crew they call when there's animals on the road, because they have all the equipment to pick up the. I mean, like, in that case that she's talking about, they're not going to leave pieces of the human there because that would go to the medical examiner's office. But the same thing, like, let's say, for example, a person got hit by an e-bike, right? So hard that, like, their leg flew off. The medical examiner is going to take the dead body and they're going to go and pick up the leg and put the leg in a body bag too and bring it all together to keep the body there. But it's not the medical examiner's job to clean up the blood off the sidewalk. So
Well,
somebody, like,
and those aren't always perfect because, we have stories where people get hit by trains and, like, a child will come across their, like, nose in a field or something next to it.
yeah, but that's just because they didn't find it. Like I said, like, people go and clean it up. But I mean, when you're getting hit by a train that's going super fast and the force of it blows your body up, like, a piece can fly 100 feet away, like, and they just might not find it in the immediate area, which is what happened in that case.
Well, sorry that happened to you. Thankfully, the gun jammed and
I know.
your dad wasn't injured.
That's scary for your dad. Jeez.
I know, it's horrible. Well, guys, if you have wild stories for us or any questions, please email them to stories@motherknowsdeath.com. And don't forget to head over to Apple or Spotify, leave us a review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
See you guys. Have a good weekend. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.